Good afternoon. I am Andrea Chisholm with the Midday News. A special welcome if you're watching on onespotmedia.com. Work has come to a halt at the Kingston Freeport terminal as all categories of workers have taken industrial action. TVJ's Janella Perseus explains why. And we'll come back to that story in a few minutes. We're moving on to another. There are discussions in the pipeline for the improvement of Jamaica's airspace. The disclosure was made by Minister of Transport Robert Montague, who was speaking at an aviation seminar held at the Courtly Hotel in New Kingston in St. Andrew. And we'll definitely return to that story in a few minutes. The family of a 48-year-old farmer, Petrina MacDonald, was found dead in her home in Berkshire, Westmoreland, and they are speaking out this afternoon. One of the deceased woman's sons confirmed that she was stabbed multiple times. Mr. Stone, however, doesn't believe his 13-year-old brother, who was held for questioning, is responsible. Mr. Stone recounted how he learned of his mother's death.
When I came down, a neighbor came and told me that they heard that something was happened to my mother. So I rushed to my phone and tried to call her where I wasn't getting any answers. So I went up there, and that's when I found my mother's lifeless body.
What did they say happened?
The Jamaican High Commissioner to the United Kingdom, George Ramakan, says the recent murders of returning residents highlight the need for relentless efforts to curtail crime. Karen Clary Brown was murdered in St. Mary and Barbara Findlay in St. Elizabeth. He notes that the government is trying to address crime by implementing a number of strategies, such as the states of public emergency and the zones of special operations. However, the High Commissioner says while those initiatives have assisted in reducing the overall levels of crime, the situation is still of grave concern. Meanwhile, the husband of slain British national Karen Clary told London's Daily Gazette Standard newspaper that his wife's body was found buried in the garden of her property in Boscobel. More in this report.
Devastated. It's how Ken Jones says he feels after learning of the circumstances which led to his wife's death. The 44-year-old beautician Karen Clary Brown, who went missing on November 25, was found buried in the garden of her dream home she was building. According to her husband, it took a day to dig for the body because of how deeply it was buried and the fact that it was covered with a tarpaulin with concrete poured over it. He stated that the police said even if they had used dogs, they would never have found her body if the man who killed her hadn't confessed. Mr. Brown, who is currently in Jamaica, confirmed that his wife's killer had been working on the property and that he stabbed her to death in the kitchen. Mr. Brown said his wife had offered the man work and somewhere to stay. Praising the efforts of the Jamaican police, he said they've kept him informed throughout the process. The Browns lived in Islington, North London. They've been married since 2004. Mr. Brown also shared that his wife was scheduled to return to the UK next month, and then they were planning to go on holidays in Thailand. Janella Perseus, TVJ News.
And as we indicated earlier, work has come to a halt at the Kingston Freeport terminal as all categories of workers have taken industrial action. Here's TVJ's Janella Perseus with the explanation.
At the heart of the dispute is failed wage negotiations. It was hoped that after months of back and forth, the signing of a new wage deal would have taken place on Thursday. But General Secretary of the Trade Union Congress, Barry Dawes, explained that what was agreed to at a previous meeting was not reflected in the final document.
Our inquiry seems to outrage the CEO. He took an attitudinal disposition, got up and said he's going to sign the document anyway, and whether we want to sign it or not, that's up to us. And he walked out of the meeting. Now, the walking out of a meeting is not just a new development. He has walked out of workers' meeting when workers ask questions. He had walked out of negotiation meeting when we raised issues to him. And yesterday, he walked out of the meeting, which shows great disrespect.
All 1,200 workers, including equipment operators, are off the job.
No containers have been transported from the terminal to the truck operators. So it means, it's simple, that work has come to an halt.
Mr. Dawes says the union remains open to further discussions.
Our position is that the company needs to address the fundamental issues. The fundamental issues, the job evaluation, the disrespect, and payment dates.
Janella Precious, TVJ News.
And as indicated, there are discussions in the pipeline for the improvement of Jamaica's airspace. The disclosure was made by Minister of Transport Robert Montague, who was speaking at an aviation seminar held at the Courtney Hotel in New Kingston, St. Andrew.
2 new air traffic towers over 4 years. Now the government has announced plans to go a step further. Transport Minister Robert Montague says first corrective steps will be taken to upgrade the Ian Fleming Airport in Boscobel and the Tinson Pen Training Center, as well as other spaces across the island.
We are revamping our Air Policy Committee, and for the first time, the Air Policy Committee is chaired by a non-government person in the person of Dr. Meredith Darby, who is the current chair. We are expanding the membership to include persons from the tourism sector and from the general private sector and general aviation.
He outlines the list of activities that are slated to be included in the project.
Some of the activities that will be undertaken include establishment of a pilot's lounge. For too long, we treat our pilots like second-class citizens. I have been to many of our aerodromes, and I see the pilots just hanging around as just anybody else. And you ask, what happened? There is no space, no place for them. Well, this government, this airports authority is putting back the respect to our pilots and to the practitioners of general aviation in this country.
The Transport Minister adds that general painting, landscaping, fencing, as well as renovating the bathroom facilities are included in the project. However, the upgrades will differ for each location. He's hoping that upon completion, there will be an increase in airlift to the country.
When I was a child, not too long ago, growing up, we had 52 airstrips in Jamaica. Today we have 8. And this government recognizes the importance of civil aviation. And we are determined to bring back general aviation into Jamaica as it was in the glory days.
Prince Moore, TVJ News.
Children's advocate Diane Gordon Harrison has outlined a list of recommendations to reduce child abuse. According to the International Society for Prevention of Child Abuse and Neglect, at least 5 children die every day because of child abuse globally. Locally, Mrs. Gordon Harrison says there are steps which can be taken to reduce incidents.
Some of the information that researchers have in fact gone over, looking at socioeconomic factors that influence child abuse, the rate of unemployment, and how to assist parents to become better parents so the frustration levels are lower. We've looked, for example, at even a very interesting strategy I found which spoke about how to help fathers to be better fathers, because that's now seen as a determinant in reducing the level of child abuse and exposure.
President of the Montego Bay Chamber of Commerce, Winston Lawson, is challenging the business community to replace poor customer service with customer appreciation. Speaking at a Customer Service Appreciation Day recently, Mr. Lawson says it's critical to remember the importance of customers to a business.
Where there are no clients, there is no business. So our businesses, our operations must involve a strategy of customer centricity. It must involve an unambiguous statement and action that the customer, the client, is number one.
He added that it's important for the business community to recognize that that strategy is key, as it is vital to Montego Bay's privileged position as the tourist capital.
The tourists are all our clients. They come here not just for the sun, which we have a lot of. And appreciate. Understand? But they come here to experience our culture, our people, who we are, and how hospitable we are. We treat them right, they spend in our economy, and will come back again and spend more.
Is the method used to teach English in schools affecting how students write? Well, an education consultant says yes. The issue was discussed on TVJ's Smile Jamaica program, and we have the details in this report.
We don't teach writing, we teach grammar and then tell them to write.
Education consultant Cheyenne Hewan says many students have poor writing skills. It is her view that this is because of how English is taught in schools. Among the concerns is that students lack basic writing skills.
We teach it in a segmented fashion. So we teach grammar as grammar, and they never make that quantum leap to transfer it to production. And that's the problem.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
It means that you will find that there are students who know the grammar. They know the parts of speech, the punctuation, but they still can't write. And so my focus is not on learning the grammar and those things. Those are just tools. I focus on writing.
Ms. Hewan also points out that some English teachers teach grammar and not how to apply it to writing. As a result, students are unable to express themselves on paper.
So you're writing a letter.
Okay.
The purpose, the content of the letter is determined by the purpose of the letter. And for each purpose and content, there are rules that should be included in that. So you go to the task knowing that if I'm writing a thank you letter, this is what should be in it. And it cannot sound like any other. If I'm writing a letter of complaint, this is what should be in it. One of the problems that students have with writing stories is that they write accounts and call it a story. But a story has a structure. There are 4 types of essays: the narrative, the descriptive, the persuasive, and the expository.
Another concern is poor sentence structure.
Even if you're writing a fun letter, the structure remains the same. At the end, that structure determines what your reader receives. So you want her to know some core facts, there's a way to present those core facts. You know, it doesn't become an issue when you are familiar with it.
Kimone Witter, TVJ News.
In regional news, the Cuban government on Thursday turned on mobile internet for millions of people on the isolated island. However, many Cubans may not be able to afford the high cost of internet service. More from the CNN.
Mobile internet service 3G has finally arrived in Cuba. The government here has always had tight control on the internet, and up until now you had to come to a place like this one, a public park that is Wi-Fi enabled to get online. Very few people are allowed to have internet in their homes here. Up until now, no one has been able to get it using a mobile network on their telephones. So there's a lot of pent-up demand among Cubans because they say to come to a place like this one, there's no privacy, the signal isn't very good. And there are only about 1,200 sites across the entire island where people can get online. So starting on Thursday, people will be able just to use their phones wherever they are and finally access the internet, get on social media, do video chatting with relatives abroad. The government says it's going to be very slow because there are about 5 million Cubans who do have cell phones. It's about half the population of this island.
And in sports, the Reggae Girls have achieved their highest ever FIFA ranking after moving up 11 places in the December edition to number 53 in the world. Jamaica has made this jump after sealing victories over Costa Rica, Cuba and Panama in the CONCACAF Women's Championship in October. They have also moved from number 6 to number 5 in CONCACAF, and they are now the highest ranked team from the Caribbean. Congrats to the Reggae Girls. And that's the Midday News. I'm Andrea Chisholm. Join us at 7 for the Primetime News Package. On behalf of the news, sports and production teams, good afternoon.